Hello everyone. Today I want to share with you a sobering tale about the deep bond between humans and animals. While most pet owners cherish their furry companions, sometimes tragically, the relationship takes a deadly turn. For 6 hours, 25 peasants toiled with the camel. According to reports, a camel that was left outside in sweltering heat with its legs tied up for the entire day murdered its owner. The incident occurred on Saturday in the Indian state of Rajasthan during a heat wave that broke records and saw temperatures as high as 43 degrees Celsius. The Times of India reports that a guy only known as Yujaram realized he had left his camel's legs bound while hosting visitors at his home in the evening. The camel threw him to the ground after attacking him. He was attempting to untie the animal. Over 25 villagers reported he struggled with the camel for 6 hours. The report quotes villager Thakararam, who said the animal lifted him by the neck and threw him onto the ground, chewed the body and severed the head. Other villagers told the paper the animal had attacked Urjaram in the past. Over the weekend, temperatures in several areas of Rajasthan surpassed 51 degrees Celsius. Although rare, camel attacks have a long history. A raging camel murdered a man and a woman in 2015 at a farm near Wichita Falls, while an American man was killed in 2014 at a wildlife park in Mexico by the camel biting and kicking him. Residents recall the 64-year-old as a good, kind, cheerful person who was killed in an accident. In a strange incident, a Russian man was shot dead by his own dog when it leaped on a pistol while they were out hunting. According to local media, the 64-year-old, also known as Sergei Terekhov, was hunting with his brother in a secluded area of the Saratov region in southwestern Russia, near the banks of the Volga. According to reports, the man let his 2 Estonian hounds out of the boot of his Lada automobile, which is when the accident occurred. Mr. Terekhov released 2 of his dogs from the trunk of the car, which began to frolic, according to the regional news website Region 64. The hunting rifle, whose butt was on the ground, had its paw caught on the trigger as a result, and the barrel was pointing toward the man's stomach. After his brother transported him to the hospital, he passed away from his wounds. Investigators said Mr. Terekhov died of abdominal injuries, where the victim managed to tell the medics the circumstances of his death. An experienced hunter was killed, investigator Alexander Galanin told. He added, he was sober, there was a permit for weapons. Everything was okay, there was an accident. He was regarded by the locals as a good, kind, cheerful person. Pictures of him hunting rabbits and posing with his dogs show that he was an avid hunter. An inquest heard that a seasoned dairy farmer who had tended to his cattle thousands of times was slain by them. Like any other day, 67-year-old Brian Swales went to check on his 17 Friesian heifers, and one bull after one was reported as acting lame. The father of 2 was alone when he passed away, so nobody observed how it happened. Therefore, questions about what transpired still linger. According to the North Yorkshire Coroner's Court, he sustained crush injuries, like lacerations to his lungs, in addition to shattered ribs. At the time, reports indicated the bull had trampled him, but a coroner declared it difficult to determine the cause of the accident. Since he was recovering from a hip operation, his wife Pauline said she thought it possible he stumbled in the rough terrain and was unable to get back up. At that point, she added, she believed the experienced stockman at the farm in Hutton Rugby, near Stokesley, North Yorkshire, may have been crushed. She stated at the inquest, his movements trying to get back to his feet may have caused the cows to investigate and have stepped on him. At the inquest, it was heard that in exchange for some land for his sheep, farmer Charlie Fintoff granted Mr. Swales permission to utilize a portion of the Doddle Hill farm property for his animals. In July, Mr. Swales was declared dead at the scene despite the arrival of police, paramedics, and an air ambulance. After the inquest, his daughter Judy Swales, age 41, said, He was a very kind and generous man and touched so many people's lives. Not knowing what happened to Dad in such a freak accident is hard to take, but we can't ask the cows what happened, can we? Returning a verdict of accidental death, Deputy North Yorkshire East Coroner Richard Watson said this was a wholly tragic case. It is evident that Brian was a skilled stockman and a farmer throughout his life. However, due to the lack of information regarding his specific incident in the field, I can only surmise that he was crushed by cattle. An inquest heard that a multi-millionaire farmer died after his dog stepped on a lever inside his tractor's cab, causing the machine to start and crush him as he was constructing a rookery. While working on the structure in his garden, businessman Derek Mead left the JKB farm loader running and the animal inside. On June 4, 2017, the father of 3 was involved in an accident when he was smashed against a fence, suffering acute hypoxia and damaged vertebrae. His son located him and contacted the emergency services. Despite the paramedics' best efforts, he passed away at the spot. The inquest at Flax Bourton, Bristol, heard that the tiny dog might have sprung up to check where the 70-year-old was and touched the lever, which was seemingly as simple to switch on as a car indicator, setting the vehicle in motion. A health and safety inspector named Simon Chilcott, who looked into the incident, gave a description of what happened before Mr. Mead passed away. He said, "Mr. Mead has pulled off the road, come to a halt with foot brake, made it stationary and put the shuttle into neutral. It was still in gear. He is now out of the vehicle, and had it been knocked at any point, when he got out, it would have started moving. You couldn't knock it as you are climbing out without realizing you've done it." In the cab of the vehicle was a small dog, and whether the dog has put its paws, probably colliding with the lever while waiting for the door or rushing up to check where its master has gone. He launched the machine forward as he leapt up to raise his paws in a curious manner. Using the lever is just as simple as swapping out your car's indicator stick. During the inquest, Mr. Chilcott also provided a technical description of the vehicle's operation. It features 2 pedals, an accelerator and brake, just like an automatic car, and requires a key to start the engine. To the left of the seat are a handbrake and a gear stick that are tightly secured and challenging to move without force. The direction shuttle, which looks like an indicator and is situated to the left of the steering column, is the device that the dog knocked. The machine doesn't need to accelerate after it is moved out of neutral. Son Alistair discovered Mr. Mead unconscious and wedged against the gate during the hour-long hearing. In a statement read at the inquest, he said Dad was crouched down facing the machine with his back to the gate as if he had seen the machine coming towards him and ducked to avoid it. Summing up, Assistant Coroner Dr. Peter Harrowing said Mr. Mead was very experienced in using the piece of equipment. The most likely explanation is that the dog inadvertently moved the shuttle lever, causing Mr. Mead to be trapped against the gate. The death of Mr. Derek Mead was one of a very tragic accident. 30 years ago, while working on his estate, Mr. Mead's brother Roger was killed in a tractor accident. Major landowner and prominent businessman, Mr. Mead passed away at his farm, the Laurels in the village of Puxton, Weston, Supermare, Somerset. He held the position of managing director at Puxton Park's owner, Mead Realizations. In addition, he was the owner of the Sedgemoor Auction Centre at M5 Junction 24. Prior to quitting the National Farmers Union in 2010, in protest over what he perceived to be its lack of support for dairy farmers, he had previously been a long-time member of the organisation. In addition to owning racehorses, Mr. Mead farmed over 3,000 acres in North Somerset. His 8-foot pet python, which he had nurtured since it was a hatchling, killed the man who was discovered dead at his house. An inquest heard that the family of 31-year-old Dan Brandon, a passionate snake handler, referred to the reptile as his baby. On August 25, 2017, Mr. Brandon asphyxiated to death at his Hampshire house in Church Crookham, Basingstoke Coroner's Court, was informed. His mother said in court that her son kept 12 tarantulas and 10 snakes in the family's house. The African rock python, Tiny, had belonged to him ever since she was little enough to fit in his palm. Coroner Andrew Bradley recorded a verdict of misadventure and said, "The most likely scenario is that Tiny was engaged with Dan. I have no doubt about that. She was coiling around him, at which point I have no idea. There was a point at which either she takes hold of him unexpectedly or trips him up or some other mechanism." He claimed that the snake hid after killing Mr. Brandon, most likely due to his reaction or the shock of his fall. At the inquest were Mr. Brandon's brother, sister and parents. Tiny was his baby, his mother told the court, adding that the snake had loved her kid. She claimed that Mr. Brandon was now conscious of Tiny's increased strength. Compared to the other snakes, Tiny made him more nervous. "She's really strong," he said. "She was so powerful and erratic that he had stopped wearing her around his neck." Dr. Adman al-Badri, a pathologist, stated that Mr. Brandon's diagnosis of asphyxiation was made by exclusion and that there were no particular indications of strangling on his neck. He reported discovering a hemorrhage behind one eye, ruptured blood vessels, and swollen lungs, which is an additional indication of asphyxiation. At the time of his passing, Mr. Brandon was in good health and had no disease whatsoever, according to Dr. al-Badri. Mr. Brandon's body bore no bite scars, and a closer look revealed that there were no surface scratches following the snake's skin, shedding in November 2017, that would have suggested Mr. Brandon tried to remove the snake from him. When Mr. Brandon passed away, his mother was home. She reported to the court that she heard a big bang coming from upstairs and speculated that it might have been her kid knocking something over or a dumbbell dropping. Upon going upstairs, she discovered her son lying face down on his bedroom floor and immediately contacted the emergency services. Moreover, she could see that Tiny was absent from her vivarium. After that, the snake was discovered under a cabinet, and Mr. Brandon's companions brought Tiny back to her vivarium. A statement issued after the conclusion of the inquest, read on behalf of the family by a detective investigating the case, said Mr. Brandon was one of the funniest people you could wish to meet. "I cry every day and night and relive that evening all the time," the statement written by Mrs. Brandon added. "All the family wanted was answers to our questions, and I have no idea yet whether we have that or will.